6:30 on Monday, October 21st, 2019.
Was there any extra?
And I will call this meeting to order. Oh, you can use the one in the folder.
No. Is there any?
Not much to it.
Box?
Do you have that?
I have it.
So what
I
time
did.
do we start?
There was
6:30?
nothing in it. I did check it.
There he is.
6:30.
6:30.
All right, well, Pete won't be with us tonight. Mike, can you sit in for Pete? And Eric can sit in for Matt. And we have 7 voting members. Public comments, we are not going to have, or public hearings and appointments. No public comments, no public hearings. We were scheduled to have Jeff here.
Yeah, I'm not sure why that's under appointments. That probably should have been old business or other business, because it's an ongoing project, but it's not really that big a deal.
But we're going to reschedule him. Do we, I don't think you know when we're going to reschedule him for.
I'm assuming we're gonna get him at the next meeting, but he's pretty ill, so,
Oh, so Jeff's not coming tonight?
no.
Oh,
You didn't get
okay.
that, you should have gotten that email.
I checked like at noon. I haven't checked since.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, he's not going to be here tonight.
okay,
Yeah, so our next meeting is the 4th, Monday, the 4th November. So I'll see if that's gonna be a valid day for him, but I'm gonna give him a couple days to,
Cover.
yeah, give him.
And you'll let Sharon know? or-
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, and I'll send that to you and to Matt also.
Good enough. Moving along, new business. Londonderry Conservation Ranger. Pete had sent out a lot of information. Hopefully everyone had a chance to look at that. Had the job description. I did reach out. I called the chairperson of the Londonderry Conservation Commission, who was incredibly selfless with her time. She gave me about 20 minutes of feedback. Obviously, she thinks the program's worked enormously well for them so far. She has said she's had a ton of calls from other conservation commissions. Word is out. I guess people understand that this is a program and an idea that they may want to emulate in their own towns.
Did she talk about how it's funded?
She did. She said a little background on it. She said they had a very significant target shooting problem on one of their major pieces of land, and that really kind of helped push this through. It worked to their advantage in the sense that a lot of people knew about the target shooting and wanted a program in place to curb it. Some of the things that their ranger does, their conservation ranger, he helps with annual surveys, like the one we have at Wasserman. He does a lot of that actually on his own, it sounds like. Monitors trail conditions, manages their game cameras. When needed, he adjudicates property encroachment issues. And she said that's been enormously effective. I guess what they used to do, if they had someone, an abutting neighbor dumping brush or whatever on a conservation property, they used to send a letter, and it almost never got rectified. She says it's a much different story when they have a uniformed officer knock on the door and say, please stop putting the brush on the conservation property.
That's good, too, because we end up sending Tim Thompson. He does. He's the one that goes out and talks to Tim, and he and I think Paul McCauley's gone out there a couple times. It's not.
Said they were able to find an individual to fill this role. I think Pete had told us that had 20 years law enforcement experience in town, and they didn't realize this when they hired the person, but that's become pretty effective. If he has a game camera and sees a troublemaker doing the wrong thing on a conservation property, he probably knows who that troublemaker is. It certainly has helped identify those folks and who are causing those behaviors. They funded the first year. The Conservation Commission funded the first year. I think Pete's email said how much it was. I think it was $75,000. They funded half of the second year, which was less because they had to actually go out and buy a four-wheeler. So that went into the first years, but they funded half of the second year, and then the third year it became part of the town budget, became its own line.
It's a good approach.
Mm-hmm. It's yet to be seen how busy they keep the individual during the winter months. I mean, they're hopeful that there'll be enough things to do, enough people using the trails.
Is it a full-time position, or is it a,
It's a part-time, does anyone remember, 20 hour?
20 hours a week.
Was it 20?
20
Okay.
hours, yeah.
That is in Pete's email
Yep.
somewhere. Part-time 20, but she did say there's some flexibility. And in addition, the individual is eligible, because he's a member of the police department, he is eligible, like this time of year when they have politicians in town or there's details and so forth. You know, he's able to, work additional hours doing those sorts of things. He goes to one Conservation Commission meeting every month. She said the feedback he's provided, there's value to it. They'll ask him about trail conditions, trail use. He's on them all the time. Although many of you are on them all the time too, so I don't know if that's something we're interested in. He will be at the NHACC meeting there. He's there with all his toys. He's going to bring the quad, the pickup, stand out there and talk about the program and the value he brings to the Conservation Commission. Fish and Game did offer, when he was first hired and that role first went into effect, Fish and Game invited him to participate in some of their fish and game officer training. So he did a few weeks of that, which really helped him to, he obviously had the law enforcement background, but that gave him that fish and game unique background. That's pretty much the highlights of what she shared with me. Pete had also sent an email. I don't know if everyone got it. And he knew he couldn't be here tonight, but he knew that that was on the agenda. He did speak with the town manager and got some feedback from her on the program. He hasn't approached the board yet. He wanted to get our feedback first, but the town manager indicated that she would not be putting something like that on the proposed budget for this year. Pete discussed with Chief Roy, and he seemed interested in the program. Again, this individual would work for the police department if we followed that model in Londonderry. And he'd obviously be available if there was some significant emergency or something. He'd be available to be called into action to help with those sorts of things. Pete definitely did think that, it's been brought up in a number of our recent meetings that there's concern about the police department's ability to enforce laws and ordinances on the conservation properties, and thought this might be a good vehicle to address those. That's really all the feedback I had from those two.
So do we think this is something we should continue to pursue? The conservation officer?
I definitely think it's something we should discuss, yeah. I mean, I don't think we need to come up with a decision tonight, but
Right, yeah,
it's something we should look into and continue to look into.
yeah,
I mean, we definitely have problems.
Mhm.
it's
yeah.
You
It
know,
seems like it's been increasing, like all the vandalism you had at Greater Woods now, it seems like Wildcat's been getting hit.
We've had 3 or 4 issues come up with Wildcat over the course of the last 2 weeks.
I think it would be important that if we had a conservation officer, they would at least be available like every other weekend, on one weekend day, or, because a lot of
Yep.
stuff happens on weekends.
Mm-hmm,
it would be good to almost not have a schedule,
Right.
mm-hmm,
you know?
Yeah.
Predictable.
mm-hmm.
So,
And did the job description really, the person's limited to 1,352 hours a calendar year, which is the equivalent of 26 hours a week.
Yeah, otherwise it goes over, it affects, because he's retired, it affects his
right.
pension or whatever, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That assumes you get someone in that position, a retiree.
Right.
So-
Yeah.
It sounds like they kind of wrote the job description around the person they had, in that case, in Londonderry's case.
Definitely, the job description laid out that it had to be a person with law enforcement credentials somewhere.
That's probably a good background
Mm-hmm.
for this.
What would the next step be?
No, I mean, I guess if we want to discuss it, I mean, we're trying to discuss it tonight. We've got a lot of that information just over the last day or so. So I've not poured through it
Mhm.
deeply. But we certainly, I mean, everyone's got thoughts about it, what they'd like to see out of that conservation officer. I mean, we talk about it, we're gonna get a little bit of groupthink going, but I wouldn't mind having people, kind of thinking on their own. Read these things to yourself and make some notes, and we can agenda this for the next meeting, the 4th, or whenever, and, discuss. I mean, I think it'd probably be good if we had everyone back here too. I mean, we'll have everyone, I think, at the
Mhm.
next, you won't be here at the next meeting, right?
Well, no, I have a family.
I would love to review the comments that you went through on, about the Conservation Commission for Londonderry.
The feedback?
Yeah,
Okay. Maybe I'll email those out to everybody.
thank you.
My concern is costs,
Yeah.
and is it a legitimate expense from say, Fund 53 or Fund 51, which is a fund established by RSA 36-A. We should get some sort of opinion on that too. When we did it previously with police officers, we were paying just the overhead costs. We were just paying for their time. We weren't paying all the other costs that go along with an employee.
We basically paid a grant.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
And
so
this-
what I don't know, what I don't know is what are all the other costs to have an employee? You know, what's a fully loaded cost, you might say?
For them, it was 75,000 for the first year.
Well, they also bought them a ATV.
All right.
Which was part of that
And
75,000
then half,
first.
you might have missed that, Tim, and then it was half.
It was half,
Gonna be half the second year, and then
and then it
town
was
covers the third year.
written into the police department budget for the third year.
It's an interesting approach,
Yeah,
you know. I mean, it's, you know, obviously, we all know what happened last time we paid that grant. You know, it didn't do us any good at all. But, this would obviously be a completely different bend. So,
Yeah.
it's interesting. It's something we should definitely, you know, I would think we should talk about.
Right.
I mean, we could, gather up all the notes. I mean, we've got a lot from what Pete sent out, and certainly your input from talking with Londonderry, be interested to see that.
Okay, why don't I do that, then
Yeah.
I'll take Pete's comments, I'll include them with,
Yeah, everyone has those, right? Everyone got,
did they come to everyone?
Pete's comments?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, they did, okay.
Yeah, but, I mean, he alluded to a previous email.
The previous
he
one,
sent two.
yeah, included, and
He
I'll
sent two.
re-forward those out.
First one had documents from
Right.
Londonderry. Actual job description.
That was a few days ago.
And there was an attachment that had feedback from a conversation between our police department and the Londonderry Police
Right.
Department,
oh, I missed that.
which is pretty, I'll send it all out again, Mike, along with the feedback I got from them.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just found his second one, okay. Yeah, I missed that.
I know, me personally, I have kind of mixed feelings about the whole idea, so I think what I'll do in preparation for our next discussion is just a pros and cons type
Yeah.
list. It's my own personal thoughts.
Mhm.
Maybe if someone else did that, we could compare notes.
Yeah, just avoid having a meeting outside the meeting, that's all.
That's right.
And I'll ask them to put it on the agenda for the 4th. Is that too soon, or?
I don't think we're gonna make a final decision then either, so,
Mhm.
I mean, obviously, if you've got some thoughts, we'll read them in on the 4th, but you'll be back after that. So, we'll have everyone here, I think, before we need to make a decision.
Okay.
What do we have that's going into, for the current land use? What do we have that's being developed that we would be getting income to restock our coffers?
I don't know, we would have to go back and see what came out of current use. So
Okay,
the only way it's funded is it's a portion of the land, portion of the proceeds from property coming out of current use.
right.
So-
I'm just curious if we can plan to see,
We had a list of the properties that were available, well, that was a little over a year ago or so now. It was a little while ago. And we'd have to just get an update to that list
Okay.
to see what's available.
Is that something that Paul McCallie would do?
I think-
I think he put it together the last
I
time.
think it was him that put, I think it was he that, yeah. I'll see if I can find it,
Okay.
and we can try to get an update to it.
Just to see if we can
Yep.
afford it.
Yep.
Wildcat Falls property use.
Yes, I thought that Jeff would be here, so I asked Liz to come at 7. So,
We can circle back.
okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Don't let me forget, though.
Okay. Oh, she'll be here. She'll
Do you
remind
wanna, do you wanna call her and tell her that, no, it's too late, probably too late now, but
I'm sure she's on her way.
Jeff is not coming?
Next item is the 2020 membership dues to the New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions. This one's pretty simple. Like, I'll make a motion to approve the invoice from the New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions for the 2020 membership, dues in the amount of $1,075, and allow the town finance department to pay the bill within a reasonable time and when meeting cash flow abilities. Source of the funding is the town budget. Anyone want a second?
Second?
All in favor? Approved, 700.
Or Tim.
That is the same amount.
I don't think he slided it out.
I voted last meeting, so.
And that is the same amount that it was in 2019. I guess that's it for new business. We don't have any old
I
business.
have a couple of things.
You do?
Yep.
Please share.
To continue the discussion, about public comment last meeting, about trying to get a bigger buffer zone behind the neighbors of the cul-de-sac and Beebe.
Mm-hmm.
I took a look at it this week. Really, if you just signed the the trail that runs along the pond behind the houses,
Mm-hmm.
if you signed both ends of that, and then put a sign by the end of, by the beaver dam and the deck going towards the houses. So really, if someone was coming from outside heading towards the cul-de-sac on the
So
trails.
when you say the beaver dam, you're talking right where the trail starts to come down, kind of up on that hill where we took
Yeah,
down
well, where the observation deck is,
before it, though.
Yeah,
I would think
yeah.
before, because that hill
Yes.
dips down and starts
So,
on
like,
top.
Gerald Rock Trail Junction.
Yep, okay.
A sign faced, people coming in that way by the brook, and a couple of signs at the other end of the trail that goes along the pond as it comes from Gateway. You really will only be extending that 300 feet a little bit, and if it was said something like residential area, hunting, it might be a nice solution, in my opinion, to that
Yeah.
problem. And I don't think we'd get flack from hunters because you're only signing that trail along behind the houses, along the pond, which they shouldn't be shooting anyway. What are your thoughts?
I have no issue with doing that. I think we're just gonna have, we're gonna have to get some kind of agreement with the police and the town that we're gonna attempt to, broaden that buffer
Yeah.
above and beyond the state
Yeah, it might-
regulations.
Right, it might extend another 100 feet or so on one side and 50 feet on the other side or
I was saying,
something.
I don't have a particular problem with it, but I think we're just gonna need to get some cooperation from the town and the police that,
Yeah,
we'll enforce that. Cause, if we can put up a sign and, if,
And maybe a trail cam,
well,
since we've already heard
Right,
that
but-
they've shot up signs.
right, but if we can put up a sign and if they don't
Mhm.
care, and the town and the police aren't gonna back us up, we,
Oh, right, well, no, I was
there's
just,
nothing we can do, so.
Yeah.
right,
I got a feeling most hunters, when they saw that sign, would avoid that section, that trail.
Probably,
Yeah.
but it's gonna be, now, just remember, you do it there, where's it stop?
Right.
And I'm not, that's a perfect spot, because it's contained by the water, it's contained by the neighborhood, it's the ideal location, but what's next?
Yeah.
Which
Well,
is,
Yeah, you'll have neighbors at Palmieri Drive, you'll have neighbors in all different places.
yeah. Well, I mean, you take these situations one at a time, I guess, if they come to us. But, I mean,
and
I'm really,
that could be the, every meeting.
yeah, I know, I'm partial to my neighborhood,
No,
but
I'm
it doesn't
not-
affect me directly, because I don't live right there.
Yeah, I'd be interested in what Fish and Game would do in a circumstance where someone was outside of the 300-foot regulation, but inside the,
Yeah, well, they probably technically couldn't enforce it, right?
they couldn't enforce
Right.
it.
But this is more
Well, we,
kind of like our property approach.
right, we get back into the fact that this is our property, so,
Yeah.
and why shouldn't we be allowed to?
And their house is there.
How big is the area we're talking about here?
Are you familiar with the,
I haven't been there in several years, so I'm not sure. Just the area we're trying to.
you could,
regulate.
you could stand in the middle of it, see the water and see the houses.
Okay,
And you, as you walk along that entire trail, you can almost see the water and see the houses along that whole section of trail. So it's not a big spot to begin with. And as Mike says, that as the trail comes around, it's bound by a neighborhood, it's bound by the pond. And we're talking about, extending the buffer a little bit on either side. So it's not a huge area. If you looked out on a map, where Coleman Path and BB Lane come down and meet around that trail, I mean, it's a confined area.
Yeah, I mean, it is be pretty easy to post anyway.
It would be, yeah.
So I think we answered our own question about enforcement. It may not be enforceable unless we go with the private property
Right, so,
thing.
right, and that's something that's,
It at least puts notice out there. I mean, so what do the rest of you think?
I had emailed an alternate solution as an idea.
Yeah,
Um,
the bow hunting.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I came
but it's,
across a document where the
That'd
town
be
of
a lot harder.
Atkinson,
Yeah.
they had issues where, some shots had actually struck people's homes. And so they were more, amenable to outright banning firearms on their town-owned properties. And that stood for a couple years as is, no hunting, no firearms whatsoever. And then apparently there was a boom in the tick population. So they walked it back a little bit and allowed by permit bow hunters to come onto the property. The town of Atkinson would actually issue it, which effectively was landowner permission, saying that this individual could hunt on posted no hunting property, which is the right of any landowner. So they effectively did exert their private landowner rights in initially banning hunting on their land and then allowing on a case-by-case basis bow hunting. Although my understanding is that they didn't refuse anyone who wanted to bow hunt it, it was just you had to get the permit. So they had some idea of who was using, actually I'm speculating on that. I don't know why they decided they blanket would accept all permits. I don't know if that would work in this case. Certainly it would eliminate the duck hunting issue because
Yeah,
people don't duck hunt with bows. So it would also eliminate the noise and a lot of the danger concerns that come with those neighbors.
how'd they handle water?
Water, so there was an exception I found in the middle of the document that said they never change any of the bird hunting, so the buckshot and all that. That continued untouched. So effectively, they were getting rid of.
What's I'm saying is like the part of the, should say the issue, part of the, you know, complaint we get is the fact that people are putting into the water and that section right there and hunting in the pond.
You mean like by kayak?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, as I said, I don't think that they changed the bird hunting rules. So people, as I understand it, in Atkinson continued to hunt along ponds with shotguns. So that exact scenario wouldn't solve the BB Lane problem. But if there was any interest in saying, you know what, the firearms issue is, there's a danger concern, there's a noise concern. These trails are highly used, highly traveled, and it's just tight quarters there for shotgun shells and such to be flying around. You know, a kind of a middle of the road approach might be to only allow bow hunting. That way you're not banning hunting entirely, which is gonna raise some red flags from many in the hunting community, I would guess. But you're trying to find a middle ground, and make everybody as happy as possible. But it would effectively eliminate that particular hunting for ducks around that area, because as I said, nobody does that by bow, that I'm aware of. You'd have to be a pretty good shot. So I thought it was an interesting solution. It was the only one I could find like that from a southern New Hampshire town where they had taken the initiative to close off hunting, and then the archery part I thought was interesting. I think there's some concern if you outright ban hunting, then you're inviting potential lawsuits. Some people have raised that concern. I don't know if maybe the middle ground approach of archery only might keep those folks at bay, and maybe they'd look to a different town to take suit up if they wanted to do that. But anyway, that was my 2 cents. I kind of like that idea of, I'm a fan anyway of more quiet recreation.
We kind of were focusing just on that section of property.
That's true.
You
mean
right behind,
the discussion
Yeah, maybe
before I
like-
piped in?
no.
For that end of the pond, you mean?
Right.
Yeah.
So is that what you're kind of thinking, is limiting that section right there to bow? Or are you saying across the town, or what do we?
I mean, you have to balance, you know, your intent and like simplicity, right? And I think it would just be easier to say, well, Greater Woods is bow only, for example. Because then you don't have the signage and all that, because that's another thing I'm not a big fan of, is
Yes.
signs everywhere as you're walking down the trails. It's, again, I'd like as pristine a situation as you can pull off. It's not a good wilderness experience for me if there's a sign every 50 feet when I'm walking down the trail. I'll just walk down Route 3. So it was just, you know,
No,
it
that
was
was
an
a-
interesting solution
it was
that
a-
I
it was a
wanted to
good
point out. I located and see what anyone else thought about it.
Why don't we just move hunting season to black fly season?
I like that.
I mean, would there be legal things about, limiting firearm hunting?
Well, that's what they did. They outlawed firearms on their town-owned land, which effectively closed it to hunting, and then they walked it back a bit and instituted that.
How much land do you know how much land they own?
It wasn't nearly what we manage.
Yeah.
They were small lots.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something to explore. It's something to explore.
Yeah, I mean, we noticed during the public comment period last week that you're not gonna make everybody happy.
No.
And it was one creative way I saw where Atkinson, maybe they were onto something. Might not work for us, but maybe it would.
I'm wondering if, in my head, it keeps coming to me that we're only allowed to use shotgun anyways in this area, not rifle for deer hunting.
That's true.
In
In
the
this-
area he's talking
In
about?
this area.
In all of southern New Hampshire.
Yeah, well, in Area M,
Right.
we're in M. And when it comes, Fish and Game has different areas in the
Alright.
state, we're in M. And I don't believe you're allowed to use a rifle to hunt in Area M, only shotgun.
That's
Really?
true. You have to use
Shotgun or
slugs.
black powder.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I've seen
I think.
people out with rifles.
No, I don't think they're allowed to hunt with them.
I can imagine firing my shotgun from a kayak.
Well, if they're shooting bird, I mean,
I just can't imagine firing.
I'm trying to find it, but I'm pretty sure Area M does not allow, it only allows shotgun.
I think, I definitely
I
agree
think
with,
you're right.
I've seen that regulation, but I'm not sure if that's deer hunting specific or, because, for example, maybe small game, you would think a 22 would be what they would use. And I'm not sure if they outlaw that. I mean, they do that in the area M and the more densely populated parts of New Hampshire because of the idea that houses are nearby and those rifles are very powerful.
Right.
Right, a bullet from a rifle could travel 2 or 3 miles.
Yeah.
Right, from a shotgun
Really?
up to 300 feet, it's pretty much
Big
harmless.
difference.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, a bullet from a rifle can go miles.
Wow.
You hit a calm body of water, it's gonna skip and without any loss of velocity.
How far did those, because I've seen those bows. Somebody came through my neighborhood with a bow one time. They were after a deer. Those things look pretty lethal.
Oh, yeah,
Those power bows?
Mhm.
compound bows.
Like a crossbow, do
How,
you mean?
yeah, how far do those go?
Couple hundred yards.
Yeah.
tops, yeah.
Wow.
And your aim has gotta be very, very good.
Yeah, and this was before I was on the Conservation Commission, so you can't yell at me, and I'm like this to him, and as I'm talking to him, I'm watching a deer cross the street behind him. So I just kept him talking.
Well, he shouldn't have been on your land.
He was on the, we have common area.
Oh.
He was on our common area.
Oh, wasn't in your backyard, just skulking
No, he was
around,
on our
but-
common area. He
Right.
shouldn't have been on that
I
either.
thought just
Yeah.
extending, and putting a few signs in that area on each side would maybe be a solution.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
that's an option, and still with the bow hunting, I mean, those are all interesting done, we're gonna have to
Yeah.
figure out if it's enforceable.
No, I mean, I think it's just gonna continue to become an issue as the population of people increases and the available open land decreases, you know, and the percentage of people that hunt, like 5% in New Hampshire, continues to decrease, you know, at some point.
In a few years, it might not be a concern.
It's not gonna be an issue?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
You know, or enough people are gonna complain that we have to
Yeah.
do
But
something
while
else.
we like
So
think
same-
about that, could we like just on our own, since we manage the property, just
I
post
think
a
to that
few
point,
signs?
I know I was certainly sympathetic to all the people that came and told their stories last week.
Yeah, I
But
can-
had we
I-
gone
I
a
can
different
hear-
direction and said, no hunting on these lands, I think we would have had an equal number of people here telling you about
Right.
how they've been doing this on that land for generations and they get 11 days a year or whatever it is
This
to
area
hunt.
is very, I don't think there'd be much squabbling over the area I'm talking about.
Mhm.
It's not, doesn't increase the 300 feet very much.
Yeah.
It's really
You'd
just
have to walk
ducks.
it.
Especially
really
that
ducks.
end
It's just principle,
You're right.
Yep.
okay?
Yeah.
And people will come out just because of principle, okay?
Yeah.
Just be very aware of that.
That's what I'm saying, so if we make one move, be prepared for these meetings to be nothing but
Contentious.
content, well,
Yeah.
and it's focused on hunting. And what can I do here? Well, you said this, so that means I can do this, this, and this? You're gonna get right into the why we didn't say what are restricted and, uses on all our properties, because then someone says, well, you didn't say I couldn't skateboard with, with a jetpack on, so I'm gonna do it. You're right, we didn't.
We'll address that at the next meeting.
Right, exactly, but I'm saying, there's like, we're gonna end up with that kind of situation, unfortunately. And we saw some of it, we had people, commenting about the motorized.
I did find the rules, so. Deer hunting is allowed only by shotgun, muzzle loader rifle, handguns and calibers of .357 Magnum, 10mm automatic 41, Remington 44 Magnum, 45 long Colt, 480 Ruger, or a 50 Magnum, or bow or arrow or crossbow in the following towns, of which Merrimack is one of them.
So that's
So
more
you
than,
cannot use a 30-06 to go deer hunting like you can up north, okay?
So those are all handguns that they
They
rattle
just
off.
yes, handguns, that they, right, and the bullets out of a handgun will travel 2 or 3 miles.
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of a silly differentiation.
yeah, is it?
Yeah, and your aim is far less accurate with a
That's
handgun.
right.
Which
Yeah.
is why most people don't use a handgun to go deer hunting, because if you're trying to shoot an animal 300 feet away with a handgun, you're likely not to hit it.
I'm likely not
Tim
to hit
likes
it
me.
anyway.
Yeah.
You know, what you see on TV doesn't work.
Yeah.
People holding their Colt 45 and their old westerns and shooting someone off a ridge, not happening. Okay?
Especially as they're falling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a cool reception about the signage, extending the signage.
No, I just think it's,
Um,
I just think we need to, we're gonna have to figure out if we can get some enforcement.
I think
ability
it's
behind it.
probably the most practical.
And
Yeah.
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Um,
Is it worth trying to get the fish and game guy from Milford here to talk to him about any of this?
Sure. I'd love to hear what he's got to say.
Shall we invite him to a meeting sometime?
Yeah, we can, yeah.
Might be helpful if.
I mean, yeah, I mean, we're trying to,
An area, visited it.
we're trying to, we're trying to restrict the interactions between hunters and the public.
Right.
We're not trying to restrict hunting, we're not trying to restrict the trails, we're trying to stop the interaction, we're trying to stop the behavior that's causing the problem, so there's someone who's probably got a lot more experience in that realm than we do.
Well, clearly the next meeting, we have Jeff coming, so possibly the meeting
But-
after.
Yeah, I'm gonna find out if Jeff can come the next meeting, we're
Okay.
assuming he can.
All right, Liz is gonna talk to him too, so
Yeah.
between the two of us,
I can't remember from last year. I'd imagine there must be fish and game. They must have a table or a booth set up at the conference. No?
I don't think so.
Mm. Yeah.
They present, the non-game section generally presents, but the general fish and game that's promotes hunting and fishing and trapping don't really have a presence there so much.
Colorful.
Hint, hint.
Well, no, it's true, I mean, they don't really, it's the non-game division that.
Any other comments on that? Or any other old business related matters?
I don't know if this is old business, I can bring it up later.
Actually,
but-
we're in new business, so
Oh,
bring up any business.
oh, right. Maps,
We need more
yeah. We're out of maps
for
of Greater Woods.
Greater Woods, yeah. I've got a handful left in my car. I got a ton for Wasserman,
you do have a ton for Wasserman?
ton for Wasserman,
All cats out too.
Yeah.
yes.
Horse Hill is running low.
Well-oiled machine
Is Horse Hill
under
out
new
too?
leadership.
They're running low.
Okay.
They're always, they put up more, they go through the maps like Kleenex.
So, what do you normally order, 1,000? Are you gonna call or do you want me to call?
20 or 30 cars in that parking
Yeah,
lot.
oh, I know, I'm not complaining, I'm saying, but they are always low.
From multiple
Um,
states now, I'm noticing.
I see
multiple
you
states.
writing, so.
I don't know that off the top of my head what we got for quantities last time.
All right, can we get like 1,000 for the
I
three?
can, I'll go back and find the orders and we can figure out what we ordered and how long it lasted and try again.
Okay.
So we got, Greater Woods, Horse Hill,
The
Wildcat.
Horse Hill Subcommittee had suggested maybe we could put QR codes on the green posts at various milestone markers within the property. Is anybody opposed to that on principle?
We have
Small
the codes.
acrylic maybe?
Yeah, we had a, we had some of those printed. Didn't we have some of those printed? Or we talked about having them printed.
We talked about it, I
I
don't
think,
think we did.
yeah, we talked about having them printed, just for that purpose.
Probably cut down a lot on the maps, paper maps, especially since they run out most
Oh, they
of
have to
the
put charging stations out there too, so people could start trying to navigate with their phone.
Why don't we just drive people around?
Yeah, we should make it more prominent that we have the maps electronically available. Because we have multiple ways to get them, links, web links, codes on the map themselves have a code that you can
That's right.
scan and bring up.
Probably just a well-designed 8.5 by 11 sheet with a bigger code that
Yeah.
lets people know.
Yeah.
Where I happen to be out of maps, scan this. You could do it for each of the properties at almost no cost.
Yeah, it's a pretty straightforward. I think, yeah, I have to go back and look. I think I got a quote for that, actually. Yeah, I'll find that.
guess the last new business item is Wildcat Falls.
Come on up.
I'm sorry, Jeff is not here tonight. He's pretty ill and, but
Do we want photos? Do you want to see visuals, or do you not care? Have
you
seen
included
them?
a bunch of them.
I
Mhm.
included some, yeah.
Okay. Well,
Oh, there.
if we need it, I have
Just
it.
if people at home want to see.
Oh,
Sure.
okay.
They won't see what's on that screen very well.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Okay.
Then I won't bother. Okay, so there's a few things going on at the moment. Last Sunday was a week ago.
Can you introduce yourself?
Oh, sorry.
That's right.
Liz Petrides, 8 Coda Road, Merrimack, New Hampshire. So Sunday I was out with the dog and stumbled on a tree stand along the power line trail at Wildcat Falls. It's on the state DOT property side, which hunting is allowed there. There is no name or phone number or address listed on the stand. So I did contact, Friday, I called Ray Green,
Can't remember his name. I think that's.
the guy from Hillsborough Fish and Game, left a voicemail. I have not heard back. So that's not the biggest deal. It's a metal tree stand if you're out there facing the highway. It's like the second to last set of power line poles. It's right to your right. And then Monday was a full moon, and Monday night, it appears, someone had some fun out on the trails. So it's again on the state property. But basically on the main loop, there's a secondary kind of jug handle that comes off. And that's where you can kind of go down under the bridge by the highway. At the first intersection, there was a tree that my dog used to like to pee on when we were deciding which way we were going to go. The tree is no longer there. Basically, someone that night took and cleared a ring of dirt and put stones around it with 13 sticks upright.
Yes, we saw that
across.
picture, yeah.
And I think they must have brought in rocks from somewhere else because there was a large pile of rocks where the tree was, some of which were burned, but I did not see any evidence of burning in the area. Didn't see any charcoal or anything under the stones when I kind of peeked in there. Someone had etched in the dirt letter P's. I have no idea. So Gina took a walk with me Wednesday to kind of take a look at it. She brought her salt just in case. I did not.
Oh.
I don't care. And I mean, it is what it is. It's very odd, but like I said, the tree is missing. So I did not find any evidence of where the tree went. I don't know if it got snapped and the witches took it away.
What size tree are we talking
Yeah,
about?
how big is
It
this?
was probably like yay big. It was
No-
good enough size. There's
No chips in the ground, no?
you can see where they cut the root, like you can see fresh cutting, but like underneath the rocks, which we really haven't disturbed because we've been waiting for the police to take a look, like you can see a big hole under there where it's gone.
They took the tree, the root ball.
They took the tree. The roots are sticking out, but the tree's gone. It's really
That's a
weird.
lot of work.
I know.
I'm
That's
taking stumps out. That's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, and they would have had to have done it. So it would have been Monday night because it was Tuesday that my husband went out and texted me, and I was working. I'm like, I'm ignoring you. And then he's like, did you look at the picture I sent you? I'm like, no. And I finally pulled it up. I'm like, oh my goodness. So anyway, so that happened. Gina and I walked out Wednesday. You made a report, Gina, to the police that day. And we've been kind of going back and forth playing phone tag with a few different officers on this one.
Yeah.
The latest, oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was gonna say, so Officer Dudash, is going to walk out with us on Saturday.
Saturday is the plan. Yeah, so he got in touch with me today. He did not want to just wander about aimlessly without knowing where everything was. So the easiest thing would be to just take him. So I'll connect with him Saturday to show him.
He's interested in finding out was a crime committed. So the only crimes that I can see committed would be, did they take a tree down and was there burning? So,
Yeah. There is some burnt sticks near the area, but whether or not they happened at the same time, couldn't tell you. So The last issue came up most recently, and this is probably the most concerning. So while Gina and I were out there, like, we commented on the, there's a marker on the tree that has the property boundary between the state land and the town land, and it says, like, you know, property of Merrimack Conservation Commission this way. Saturday, my husband was out walking the dog once again, and he texted me a picture of that sign with bullet holes in it. I did hear, because I don't live far from Wildcat, I live like across the river from the North Loop Trail, and around 9 o'clock that night I had heard someone, it sounded like target shooting. And I thought it was odd at the time because it was at night, you're not supposed to shoot at night. I didn't know where locally someone would be shooting, but just kind of ignored it. So I think that's when it happened. It could have been before then, but I went out and looked at the tree and it was freshly, it was still making runny sap when I looked at it on Saturday. So there's another officer, I called the station Saturday and I spoke with Officer Green. I don't remember, though, I have to check. So she came over and took a statement, and that has been included with everything else. So there's no shell casings in the area. It looks like they cleaned it up and may have even removed the bullets from the tree. But it's, if you're there, it's again right on the property boundary because they shot the tree.
Man, that's a lot of work.
Yeah. It's
The
probably
tree's still standing.
tree's still there, yeah. Yep.
And
And
they
I think
cut-
they probably would have had to shoot it very closely because there's either they had really good aim or they were shooting it from about 10 feet away. And the slugs are just so far in the tree I couldn't see it. But yeah, it's a bigger sized tree that they
So
hit.
the signs on the tree?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sign's still on the tree with holes in it. So we might want to get a new one.
Are you familiar with calibers at all? Is this
It's
a
probably like a
122?
9mm.
That big, huh?
Yeah.
I guess that's a yes.
Anecdotally, I did find a .40 caliber shell casing not far from there over the summer, and I did have the police take it as evidence. I did not see any signs of target shooting at that point. It just seemed really odd because it was sitting right on the trail. So it wasn't too far from where that happened. So I don't know if this has been happening, we just haven't seen it because they've been hiding, or if this is kind of just new. So,
I would think if someone's, the Wildcat's not that big.
no, and actually.
So if someone's firing a 40 cal, you're gonna hear it.
Coincidentally, when Gina and I were out there Wednesday, we spoke with a woman who lives in the neighborhood. Her name is Amy,
Amy?
and she had said that she had been hearing gunshots at night from the area of Wildcat.
Yeah,
So,
Really, they express to people when they hear that they need to call the police.
yeah. And, you know, the police said that to me as well. I should have called. Honestly, like, I didn't put two and two together at the time, but I really should have,
Yeah.
and I certainly will now. So,
Is the rule no gunshots at night? Is that a rule? Because I always hear gunshots at night from where I live. I shouldn't say
There's no
always.
hunting.
no hunting at night.
I'm hunting at
Hunting
night.
at night. But see, my problem is I live close enough to, what's that that shooting place that's on Greens Pond?
Yeah.
They don't know.
Fishing game?
Yeah, I mean, on a damp night, sound travels, so I'm never sure if I call and it's from there, you know?
Or if it's fireworks. We like to shoot off fireworks.
Yeah.
But I don't think what I heard that night was fireworks. I really think I was hearing target
Yeah.
shooting. So it's on my radar. If I hear it now, I will call. So, it was expressed to me, do they want to set up camera? They might investigate whether or not they want to put a camera out there to kind of keep an eye on things. We'll see, but,
Yeah, I think they should definitely put a camera on the circle, because whoever put that there, if they left it there, my guess is they're planning on coming back around Halloween, so.
Do we have
Possible.
anyone at DOT to contact regarding monitoring their property? I mean, that is their property. They're responsible for it. I mean, they've kind of allowed us to walk on it, but
Yeah, so Eileen could get someone, our town
Yeah.
manager, because we did coordinate the letter when we asked if we could
Yeah.
take possession of it, so.
we probably should at least notify them that this is going on.
You want me to send something to Eileen? And let her know what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, we should, the police have a report. I suppose we should, the town manager probably doesn't know anything about it. And she
Right.
can communicate with DOT about the fact that there's activity on your on your land.
All right, so I'm gonna send
We're
an email.
investigating.
I'm gonna send an email to her, and then I will copy the Conservation Commission and Officer Roy.
Sure.
And just to confirm, Gina and I were asking about this too. The state property, they can't be there after hours there, correct? I know town ordinance, I assume, is only pertinent to the town side, but is there the same rule on the state
No.
side? So they could be there after hours, okay. So
Yeah,
really-
And they can enter it without going on our property.
Yes, yep. They probably came up from under the bridge.
Yeah,
I had to guess.
Or from West Chamberlain.
Yeah, that right
Right.
there.
There's lots of ways.
Okay.
They would have had to enter it from somewhere else. They couldn't have entered, that's a long walk from where they were in the dark. I mean, granted, it was a full moon, but still.
Yeah. It's more likely, to Tim's point, that they came in from under the bridge of West
Right.
Chamberlain. Because
Yeah.
it's not far from where that was all located.
Yeah.
Other than taking the tree down, though, there's probably nothing illegal they did by building that circle, right? I mean, I went out and checked it out myself, and it's a circle in the dirt, you know, with some sticks stuck in the ground, but
I would agree.
aside from
Yeah.
it being annoying, you know, just hiking along, it's,
Right.
the-
I mean, other-
taking down a
'cause
tree is different.
We ask people not to, you know, not to alter the trails or anything like that, that's the same concept, but illegal, no.
Yeah.
You know, I don't
Well-
think it's anything we can, unless they destroyed a stone wall to do it.
Oh, good point.
Yeah, the rocks were a lot smaller than stone wall rocks.
You
You
didn't
were-
see any burning, did
You were
you?
gonna say something
I
before.
didn't.
Yeah.
Well, the first pictures I saw, I thought that maybe there had been ash
Yeah.
spread out, because it looked like a lighter colored dirt.
Yep.
And I went and I
Yeah,
kind of felt
no.
it, I don't think so.
Yep, I did the same thing. Anyway, so it's been fun over there.
There was
rocks.
also I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, the rocks actually look like, the rocks that are actually like by the falls and by the river. Just what I'm noticing, looking at the pictures up close now.
Yeah, I think they were carried in. And like I said, I think it required a lot of coordination and effort to do this. Because if they brought the rocks in, it's a good pile of rocks. It would have taken a couple people, not to mention the time to take a tree down. And it was very clean. I mean, there was, you know, the whole area was very nicely cleaned of,
It was immaculate.
yes. So,
It was very
bizarre.
symmetrical.
and it's still immaculate. People have continued to clean it off for us,
Oh,
so.
really?
Oh, yeah.
The peas are scratched out,
Yeah,
but
the
it's
peas are
still
gone, but-
perfectly clean.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I mean, if they're witches, they obviously have a broom with them, so.
Wow, that was a great dad joke.
I mean, I did ask I have a couple of friends who are very interested in metaphysical stuff, who reached out to their friends, and the feedback that I got was it was just basically a full moon ritual, that there was no nefarious intent. And the P, somebody looked it up and said that the P is Wiccan for blessed be.
For what?
Blessed be. So it's a blessing of the land, but it's kind of like, well, if you're going to bless the land, please don't take our trees down. So, very simple. And we're not into sacrificing our trees. Don't take our trees down.
There's Eric's point, sweep up when you're done. Don't just leave it there. How far is that spot from the Marauders Bridge? 'Cause there's a lot of rocks down
It's,
there.
I'll show it to you.
It's not far.
Here.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Liz was
That's
kind
difficult
enough
to get up and down
mark
that
it.
embankment to get
Yeah,
rocks
that's what I
though.
was
It is,
thinking.
but with a
That's a
5-gallon
Number
pail,
2.
you know, 1 or 2 trips, there aren't a ton of rocks there. The rocks in the center are a little bigger.
They could have also pulled them out of like the sand pit area. I don't
Would
know.
have required a lot of planning.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So, someone had a good time. I missed the tree. My dog is gonna miss the tree, but he'll find other trees to pee on. So, we'll see what they say on Saturday, and I guess we'll go from there.
People willing to do that kind of work, I almost want to get them for volunteers.
Trail cleanup. Yeah,
So fishing game is Ray Green.
yeah. I called him
Okay.
and left a voicemail, but I haven't heard anything back. So,
Okay.
and the stand was there again. I checked it Saturday. It was still there. I wasn't sure if I don't know how long those things would stay up, but
Through
When
hunting
we make
season.
reports to the police, we're supposed to also be making them to Tim Thompson.
Oh,
So
okay.
he knows.
I did not realize that.
I noticed a hunting blind not far from where you're talking about too.
is that the same thing as a stand that I just don't know about?
No, because you said it was metal and it was
Yeah.
in the tree, right?
Yep.
This is like a little tent on the ground.
A tent in the ground.
Yeah, where somebody.
So the sticks
hunkers
that
down and
were
Set up a blind.
Yeah, there was a blind, it was also on state land.
Was that just where it looked like a teepee almost of just sticks that were kind of?
No, this was like, you buy it at Walmart.
Oh.
It's like a tent,
I
literally.
haven't seen that.
Camouflage tent.
Oh.
Yeah. It's, you still have that map?
Yep.
You know, where there's like that little, wetland near the highway, very
Mhm.
close? It's like, if you look sort of right over that, like
Oh, it's on the other
across-
side?
Yeah, it's on the other side.
But isn't that too close to the highway?
You would think.
Does anyone have any brown kiosk paint too? Because Liz did also find some graffiti.
Yeah, that, I was looking for that. That's stain, I believe.
Is it?
No, I have no idea where that is.
All right. My husband might have some.
Right there, the blind.
That's really close.
Yeah, it's definitely right
I
next
have
to the
like
highway. You can see
brown
it across
semi-transparent
the
Yeah.
stain,
Yeah.
outdoor stain.
I didn't see it over there.
You
You know,
should-
it's funny because I walked down that way and I
Yeah.
kind of wondered if someone would have put up over
Brown.
there because I figured it'd be a better spot.
I think Jerry has
Gina,
some for the
yeah,
deck.
Matt
too.
was holding on to some of the
Probably lots of deer
spare
there because
supplies
they don't
Yeah.
have
left
any
over,
pressure.
Right.
Okay.
some of the
Okay.
scout projects.
Oh, okay.
He may have some.
Okay.
I just don't know.
Was it?
I
kind of
definitely
posted out
have
where the stand
brown
was?
semi-transparent
No, the
stain.
stand is located number 1 on the map.
Okay.
So it's not
Got
too
paintbrush?
far, I guess, as
Yeah,
the
paintbrush.
crow flies. It could be the same
Busy this
person.
week?
I'm sure
Yeah,
it'd be
would,
close to the trail stuff.
No.
email me or
It's the,
something.
okay, it's the kiosk on the Currier Road parking lot.
Yeah.
Do you know the kiosk that's
Mhm.
in that parking lot? It's what on the right-hand side of it?
Yes.
It's a very small,
It's real small.
yeah.
It's just like black Sharpie.
But you want the whole kiosk stain or just that
No.
part? of
No,
it?
I was just,
Just,
Oh,
let
I-
me find it for you. It's not big.
Yeah, I can stop by.
Here it is, right there.
Yeah, okay.
It's probably only 6 inches square.
Yeah, it basically just
I
needs a
mean,
little bit
the
of,
stain won't totally get rid of it, but it'll get rid of, you barely will see it, probably.
I don't even know what this means.
Yeah, what it says, I
I'm
know. I
afraid
was
to
like-
read it out loud because it might be something naughty, so.
It means I'm 15 years old and bored.
all right. That's what I
Anything
know.
else on Wildcat?
When I was there on Saturday around midday, I was walking along the power line, and I did find something that was like some big wooden metal structure that was
I
on the
did see
ground.
that
It's
too.
the
that-
stand.
No.
Is that the stand?
Well-
Like, this is what
I saw that too. I don't know what that is. My husband and I looked at that, and it looks like it came off the power line.
that's what I thought too.
And I didn't remember
Oh.
seeing it before, but I figured I've made so much noise
Oh, yeah.
recently over
You
things
make
there.
your noise.
It's a guy
No, keep making noise.
It's a what?
Yes.
It's a guy anchor. That's the guidelines that come down, the metal guidelines that come down,
Uh-huh,
and these are the anchors that are in the ground
uh-huh.
that they strap those wires to and bind them up to stop the poles from.
So it fell?
No, that's usually supposed to be in the ground already. But it obviously it's obviously bolted through that pole,
Mm-hmm.
so it came off, and so it came off the pole. That might be the attachment at the top.
I didn't see anything that looked like it was missing from the top of the pole, which is what I found odd.
I looked on the other poles to see like what it might have been,
Did any
but I couldn't
supposed to have
find
the
anything.
cross members on? Or are they
No.
only just the verticals?
I think they're just verticals. I got a picture, hold on.
That's just a guy, that's a guy pole, a guy anchor.
Or graffiti, I don't know.
You want one of those, huh?
I can, yeah, I'll just do it.
They're called guy wires, you know, the guy wires that come down,
Sometime. Maybe even tomorrow. who knows?
where they anchor, are guy anchors.
I just appreciate you doing it.
You like that, huh?
I'm glad I wasn't the only one who
Yeah.
noticed. Well, I guess,
Really didn't work, you got away, right?
I don't know. I'm not making any noise about that one. Keeping my mouth shut. Okay, you guys need anything else from me?
We
Thank
don't.
you.
Thank you for coming.
Appreciate it.
Welcome.
We appreciate your support out there and all you're doing also. I
Yeah.
mean, this is a,
Hopefully it stays quiet from here. I was expecting trouble over the summer, not in the fall, you know?
Yeah, actually fall's a bit kind of a,
It's worse this year.
yeah,
Yeah.
I guess it kind of is a troublesome time sometimes.
After Halloween.
Yeah, maybe. All right, well, have a good night, guys. Thank you.
Thank
thank you.
Any other new business items?
I was contacted the other day by someone who wants to volunteer. So, he's interested in Greater Woods, So,
Is that Tom?
no, it's Michael Redding. So he sent, you know him, you think, maybe?
Well, I know the name, I'm trying to figure out
Okay.
how do I place it? Yeah.
Yeah, so he reached out and he's interested in volunteering, he wanted to know what he could do, so we're gonna contact him regarding the subcommittee, Great Whip Subcommittee. Just FYI.
Other business, just a reminder, did everyone who wanted to go to the New Hampshire ACC sign up for it? Or select your classes? I don't know who, I can't remember who said they wanted to go to that. It's probably not a deadline, but those classes do fill up, yeah.
I did, I signed up a few days ago. I asked Tim what classes I should take. Unfortunately, those classes were full.
Oh.
But I am taking land conservation options and rules for conservation commissions, using GIS to create maps for conservation land, and land stewardship and management plans. So those are what
Okay.
I have signed up for.
Nice.
It's probably not a bad class there.
No, there's, again, it's like your senior year, you know?
Mhm.
You get to take all electives,
Mhm.
anything that interests you.
Let's see, other business?
Did you guys see there was an email that came through, and it was talking about a very large tree has fallen across the Drilled Rock Trail?
Yes.
Okay. Are you on that?
I have not had a chance to go there and take care of
All
it.
right,
I
do
don't know.
we just want to leave it for Matt? Matt, you're back, here you go.
Matt's already handling it, I think.
I had actually alerted Matt to that the day before that email, and he said he was on it.
Oh, good,
So
okay.
Apparently, he's managing things from afar.
Okay.
Does anyone have any subcommittee updates?
No, Liz
Mary?
just did mine for me.
Moving on, I guess the minutes. I don't know if everyone's got a copy of them. I think I have two.
Okay, I will make a motion to approve the Merrimack Conservation Commission minutes dated October 7th, 2019, with changes as follows.
Second. Page 2, line 5, should be worst case scenario, not cast. Same page. Line 24, it says right above that, the flow would go into the catch basin and separated, comma, I guess be separated? Or just separate? As it stands, it's grammatically awkward.
Page 5, line 10.
Page 5, line 10, change the word like to luck, L-U-C-K. Page 6, line 30, also line 32, same error, libel should be liable, L-I-A-B-L-E. Line 40 of the same page, when Pete was talking about requesting the town council research it, I'm guessing he meant the town council,
the town council.
C-I-L?
Yep.
Okay. 'Cause maybe he did mean the council, which would be accurate, so, but I think he was talking about the town council. And page 8, line 33, the end, example of areas where there are no trails, add the word there. Page 11, line 25, conducting an historical project, change A to an. And that is going to be it that I have. Anybody else?
I got a couple,
Okay, good.
although I admit I didn't read it all. I did get a couple. Okay, so on page 3, line 9, we got a couple of spelling things here, although I will note, on the ecodes360.com, it's also spelled wrong. So Hitchin Post Lane is really 2 words. Well, it's 3 words. So it's Hitchin, Hitchin, and then it's Post, capital P-O-S-T. And then Mitchell Street has 2 L's. And then I'm not sure if we need on line 11, cannot remain or stay from, it says half after sunset to half before sunrise. Do we need the word hour in there?
Yes.
Okay. So that's actually in 2 spots. That is also on page 4, line 8. So just add hour in there too, on the 2 places.
Don probably cut and paste all that right out of my PowerPoint, so,
Okay,
just so you're aware.
okay.
Add it to your PowerPoint, would you?
Yeah.
All right, and then, on page 5, line 13, into another hunter, shouldn't it be 30 feet to 40 feet? There's no little foot sign there.
We need to add units of measure.
Need to add units of measure, thank you.
They do like foots.
And then also on line 13, off the trail, who, add the word said. Okay, being super nitpicky, on page 5, line 40, should we put an apostrophe to indicate, possession for abutters? And the last one that I have, because I only got up to page 6, was on page 6, line 16, near where drilled rock, not where drilled wreck. That's all I have.
Drill Rick.
Pardon me?
So we don't want to drill Rick?
No, not today.
Anyone else? Comments to the minutes?
You got all mine too.
All in favor of approving the minutes as amended? 23700. All right, item number 10, public comment. Commission will hear comments on matters related to conservation commissions. Hi, good evening. You know the drill, if you would, just sign in, state your name.
My name is Jeff Hoy. I live at 7 Tomahawk Drive, and I am here to comment on other business regarding edits to Chapter 111 of the Town Code. Basically, I'm here because I had spoke at the public comment period, whatever, session, is the word I'm looking for, 2 weeks ago. And I wanted to, I didn't have my thoughts collected at the time. I just wanted to take a minute to add further input and understand we're in the process of gathering information as it regards to making these changes. And I would like to first of all say thank you. You are all volunteers. I understand what it's like. I've previously volunteered at this table. And there's no reason to I came in a little bit agitated the last time I spoke. But it's because I feel strongly about the way that the conservation lands are managed. Essentially, I've lived in Merrimack a long time, and I've seen it change a lot over those years. And some of the traditional uses of our open spaces have included the current uses, whether it be hunting, mountain biking, hiking, bird watching, any of that stuff, stargazing, like the dark skies. This is wonderful that we have these lands to enjoy. But I feel that the change regarding the category of all lands having restrictions on motorized use is a little bit too strong. And I want to do what I can to help you make a good rule. So I think that in order to make a change like this, especially one that could potentially carry a fine of $1,000, we need to proceed carefully. And take our time and make sure it is a good rule. So I have a few questions that I feel need to be answered, and the decision makers who will approve this change will probably likely have the similar questions. Specifically, it has to do with how much do you anticipate on spending on the enforcement of this change? I know historically you spent money out of the special funds to pay the police special details. I'm wondering, how much did that cost before in the limited patrols that you've done? And if this is going to be a large expense? I mean, I could probably answer my own questions, but you guys don't seem to have a budget. I can't look it up. You have a fund, but you don't really show many receipts. So I can't do my own homework to figure these things out. So I'd like, I feel that the burden of the group that's seeking the change, the burden of making the change should be on you all to provide some more answers to these questions. So first of all, what's it going to cost? I understand that we have a lot of literature, signs, maps, websites. It all includes motorized use. So I want you to consider that you'll have to replace everything out of the Greater Woods. I'm just wondering if there's a cost associated with that. I also was hoping to figure out if we knew a couple of fundamental parts of the group of users that will be largely affected by this change. Do you have any idea of how many motorized users currently use that property, the Greater Woods?
I guess, which questions you want to start with?
Well,
Because you asked a lot of
I'm
questions,
putting
right?
the questions on the
Yeah.
table, so
Yeah.
I'm not seeking resolution, I'm providing fodder for your research.
Yeah, because, well, when it comes to the cost that we've spent for the details, we can get that from the town finance department.
Okay,
We would just ask them and they could provide that. It's all been voted on in public meetings, but the final bills, they would have that because they have an accounting for our fund and all the monies that come out of it, so. I'm not sure that it's.
So community development would be the place to go?
No, the finance department
Finance
has
department.
the records for our funds, and they would know all the receivables and payables that have come out of that fund. And they would have those records going back to day one. So,
okay.
yeah, so yeah, that can be researched and gathered. I personally don't know what the number is, so.
Right, and that's why I don't expect to have
Yeah.
resolution to any of this here or now.
Yeah.
But since there will be a decision-making point down the road as to whether to make these apply or not,
Yeah.
I think it would be very useful to provide some of this information to the decision makers when that time comes. I was leading into, do we even know how many people are using any of these properties for motorized use?
I think we have a pretty good idea. Do we know, did we put out a counter to count how many times they drove across the trail? Probably not.
Well, yeah, I know you don't have the same resources as the DOT, but I think that there should be some accounting for that. I mean, I don't think that anybody here has a rubber bone in their body. I mean, I'm sure you're all truthful, and but a lot of it is anecdotal. I mean, I can read the minutes and, check off, oh, somebody reported a dirt bike, somebody, but that's a lot of work. I'd like to see if you can give us a sense of what the universe is of users.
Yeah, it depends on the property too, and
Yeah, and following up on
really,
that,
yeah. it's
could
really
we
hard.
maybe ask the police to provide us with the number of calls they've received? Is there any way to
Yep.
see if there is a,
Yeah, they have all those records, they can easily do it. I think we'll find that it's a very small number.
okay.
Yep.
And you can see how I'm driving at this. It seems like the problem doesn't really fit the solution, in my opinion. It seems like we're just papering over something that is already being handled
How is it being handled?
through education.
No.
Have you taken a walk down at Sklar and seen the damage on the trails down there?
Well, Scalar, that's a whole different story.
Well, no, it's
No.
not. It's one of our properties now, and it's being heavily damaged by
Yes,
motorized vehicles.
but it's already restricted.
But the restrictions are not working.
And continue to enforce the restrictions that are in
We're
place.
trying to.
Yes.
We put
and
rocks on
that's
and
a
they
great
move the
place to
rocks.
focus.
We put the rocks down and they move the rocks.
My beef is places where it is allowed will no longer be allowed.
So Greater Woods, you're just talking about like 2 trails in Greater Woods,
Yeah,
2 trails, right?
No,
Or 3 trails?
Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
it's not 100 feet, it's
Yeah.
thousands of feet.
Mhm. But I mean, but it's only one property right now that it's allowed.
Well-
So it's a change to one property.
and I want to just editorialize for a minute and say that Sklar, a lot of the lands around Greens Pond, a lot of the acquisitions that have occurred in the past 5 to 10 years were historically places where people would operate their off-road vehicles. And through acquisition and restriction, those lands have been removed from that use. So I think that through the actions of land acquisition, it sort of exacerbates part of the problem.
Isn't there a place up by the transfer station
And,
for ATV use?
yeah. And
It's
you're,
maintained by the
That
town,
place.
too.
before,
It's for driving in circles and scrambling around. Trail riding is an entirely different experience.
Are you a trail rider? Do you have an ATV?
No, I've never owned one.
Okay. But you're very vested in this. I'm just kind
Yeah,
of
because-
curious.
Because that's what we did when we were kids. I grew up in that neighborhood.
a lot of the properties before we purchased them, when they were private properties,
Yeah.
a lot of the properties were posted that were private property, no ATVs like Scalar was.
Yeah.
In Greater Woods, before we cleaned up the target shooting area and got that property, that was posted, not for ATVs, but for shooting, I think. It's just disregarded.
So just because somebody's been doing it for a long
Even
time
before- I
doesn't mean
mean-
it was right.
But
Right.
I think.
But what I'm saying is that they were previously restricted by private landowners, and whether or not they chose to enforce those restrictions was entirely up to that landowner.
But whether someone chose to follow the law and the signage was up to that person.
It was a private property
But I-
matter.
Well, right, but I wouldn't use that, I guess. I appreciate you coming here, and I think you're asking good questions. But if somebody's disobeying a sign, I don't really hold weight that they've been doing it for all these years, because they shouldn't have been doing it.
I also don't put any weight in the fact that training is gonna make them stop.
Right.
They've already exhibited the fact that they won't listen, they're obviously already knowingly breaking the rule and doing damage. And it's not even the rule so much, it's like the damage. It's like, if they're not even gonna help repair the trails and stuff, I'm not gonna continue to go out there and spend the time to fix it.
So what specifically do you want? You want 2 trails in Greater Woods to not be changed for ATV use? You want people to be able to go and you drive their ATVs on those particular 2
I'm
trails?
saying specifically that the use of the word all, restricting all conservation properties or lands managed by the MCC, I think that's an overreach, basically. I think that the places where trail riding is allowed, by motorized vehicles should just remain that way.
So who's gonna fix the
So,
damage?
so through acquisition, whether it be deeds or management plans, I know that management plans go a long way into helping a property achieve its potential. You know, I contributed to working on the Greater Woods Stewardship Plan. I understand there's a massive process behind the Horse Hill property. I think that large parcels or groups of parcels that have management plans in place already have the attention that they need in terms of regulation. I fully support all these nickel and dime properties, these backwaters and swamps should be lumped together. You know, we're talking about 50 out of those 62 parcels, something like that. Sure, go ahead. Because you can't really do anything to them anyway, except for walk around and whistle. Right?
Yeah.
It's good bookkeeping, and I support that, and it makes sense to have a clear, easily understandable set of rules that are common to a large group of parcels. I'm just saying that this is, you know, a step too far. Say all.
Well, I guess my question to you is, okay, so if we decide to allow it, who fixes the damage?
The people who maintain the land, manage the land.
So in other words, so our group that's maintaining the land, so everybody goes out and they tear everything up on the ATVs, and then they go back to their house, and then we go out and we fix the damage.
The same people who built the trails after all the logging operations. And by the way, aren't we due in the next 5-10 years anyway to just do a major logging operation out there?
Okay,
So,
so if we're all
I'm
volunteers.
just letting you know that
Okay, but
it's-
we're
it's been done.
volunteers.
Yes, I'm a volunteer as well.
Okay, so do you wanna go and you wanna fix the trails that have been damaged with the,
Give me a list.
okay,
Sure.
Yeah, well, essentially the rule we put into Horse Hill was a group of people responsible. And
Right.
I think that's what we're asking for here. If there wants to be a group responsible for it, I don't think we would argue.
Yes, but that's retroactive.
No, it's proactive. Because we tried it out.
We had 24 members of that committee for the Horse Hill.
We
It
did this,
took
we did the same,
years.
we did the same thing, we did the
And-
same thing with Greater Woods, is we had.
It's not
we
written
had-
in there,
We
Gage.
had the members, we had members of the Right Riders on the,
I
on
was
the
at the
group.
meetings.
I know.
I was at the table.
And they've.
But it was
re-
not written into the management plan. This is different from Horse Hill.
No, we've got trail classifications written into the management plan, absolutely.
Yes, but the requirement for
Yeah, right, you're right.
an
That- that's the
organization
difference.
doesn't exist for that
Right,
property.
because we didn't write them out of it.
Yeah.
That's exactly the point, that's what we're doing now, is we're gonna go back to the same thing we're doing with Horse Hill. It's like, if there's a responsible party that wants to take over and that trail maintenance, great, fine,
So
no problem.
But the right riders have abstained, they're not doing it.
I have a alternate suggestion.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of all properties being, you know, written into the town code with a penalty of fines. How about we just rewrite the stewardship plan for the Greater Woods? Update it.
Yep.
Rather than restrict motorized use from all lands.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that's going.
Yeah.
You can have the same effect and force as you have for Horse Hill, just through your management efforts.
Yeah, I
Well,
think
so-
what,
so the trouble
Rewrite
is
this,
that we don't-
rewrite the manual.
You don't have enforcement without a town ordinance. That's why we're doing all this work. Is we're taking the rules and turning them into an ordinance that is now enforceable. Before it was the only thing that you could have gotten in, only issue you could have gotten in trouble with is trespassing after you're told to stop doing it.
Okay,
So
and that's still the case.
correct, it's still the case.
So we could all go out to Horse Hill right now and boogie around.
Yep.
Yep.
Without any kind of consequences.
Yeah, and well, once you were told to stop doing it, then there'd be a consequence. You get away with it once until you were told. After that, then then it's trespassing.
Okay.
So,
yeah, and I think you know,
plus any damage you might do. So if you if you damaged a bridge or something like that, you'd be responsible for that as well.
Tim and Gina have been working, I don't know, for like a year now on the updates to 111, to trying to get these, you know, and it's for simplification, so, like Tim said, enforcement, if it's not on the books as, then the police sometimes have their hands tied, you know, and we have our hands tied, and as a result, you know, we can't get action. But they've spaced, you know, there's spent a lot of time just trying to simplify,
But we, to Jeff's point, we have to recognize that people have a different opinion and a different approach.
Sure.
So I think that all should be viewed.
Yeah.
So,
Well, at the least, just tell us how much it's gonna cost.
yeah.
And those are my comments. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Let's see, nearing the end, commissioner comments. Eric?
No real comments, just thanks for giving me the opportunity to go to the NHACC meeting in Pembroke. Really looking forward to it.
I don't have anything.
Nothing?
Well, glad you can go. I think you'll be enlightened, so. So I thought I'm all set.
Where you Hunter Orange?
Orange.
Yet another video of bears walking around people's yards, so bird feeders, don't put them up yet.
in Merrimack.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, South Merrimack, yeah. Big paw print right in the front steps.
Oh, that was me, sorry.
People are still putting up bird feeders.
Oh, yeah, yeah, we got
Right,
video,
the
we
warnings.
got video of them taking it down.
That actually does remind me, I think I did see bear tracks at Wildcat on the Wildflowers Trail, is that what's called?
Another fishing game warning say, if you feed a bird seed to a bear, you might as well name it.
Yep.
You own it.
Yeah, they're coming back.
They'll always remember where they got that deal.
They will.
Anything?
Taking a training this coming Friday, speaking for wildlife.
Oh, cool.
It's through Cooperative Extension. I'll let you guys know how it goes and have a presentation or two that I might be able to provide the public afterwards.
That's a great program. It works out really well. I did it for a while. I just haven't done it lately, but
Maybe we'll
it's really easy. They still have the box.
Right.
Yeah, it's easier than it seems. So I encourage you to do it. It's fun.
Mike?
No comment?
Nothing? I have nothing.
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
All in favor? 700.
7:57.
Being adjourned at 7:57.